we're going to have Donald's deck list. I am your caster Sam, and I'm joined by Ewan.
Hello.
So Donald today is going to be running Summer Pockets versus Chris's Rent a Girlfriend, and looking at Donald's list, it's largely what you kind of come to expect from Summer Pockets, which is Shiki, which everyone seems to be running nowadays, and quite popular amongst the UK players as well. Still running the Shiroha combo at level 2/1.
Yeah, it is still pretty strong. There are still lots of things in the metagame that will struggle to reverse a body that big at level one. The most interesting thing about Donald's list in particular is that he issues any early play heal package for a red top four event instead.
Yeah, the top 4 beat event, not one you really see in many lists. I can kind of understand the idea behind it, trying to mill the deck out a little bit to get some triggers out while also getting some necessary pieces in hand. But
Yeah, he's running three of the level one level assist. So he's got like five different pieces that he's trying to gather all at once. So having an extra bit of utility to try and pull that together makes a lot of sense, I think.
definitely, I think one thing the deck could be missing for that kind of game plan with the event is the blue level 0 that has the shuffle back. That would probably be a really good sort of addition, like an extra piece of utility to work for that game plan of getting more triggers back in the deck for Shiki.
For sure. But even without that, this is just by virtue of the core cards in this deck, it's very strong.
Exactly, the core of this deck's incredibly solid. So even if you're running unconventional things or lack of conventional things, the deck is still going to be incredibly solid.
Mm-hmm.
And moving on, we're going to be taking a look at Chris's Rent a Girlfriend list. Quite a new deck to the scene, not been out for too long, so not really had a lot of time to really see what a meta list for this looks like. But he's gone for the Ruka level 1 combo into the Chizuru level 3 combo.
This is a very interesting set. I was talking to Brandon yesterday, and he said that the set's average card quality is very high. There's nothing that particularly stands like head and shoulders above the rest. And you can see that reflected in Chris's deck building here, because we've got 7 one-offs and a bunch of cards at 3 or less. So there's a wide pool of cards that he's interested in trying to cram into the list, and not everything can make the cut.
Definitely. We've also got some like very useful tech cards for specific matchups. We can see there's the 1-0 Ruka that has the effect of when it's front attacking a level 2, it gains 6k power for the battle and gains an extra 1000 on its own. Very useful against a lot of standby decks that we're seeing people run at the moment, especially Summer Pockets to deal with Shiroha, which even though it isn't a standby deck, still runs very heavily on the level 2 play, and there being 2 Fate Grand Order lists both running Gilgamesh, very useful card to deal with cards like that.
Yeah, I'm sure he's very excited to have it in his list for this matchup in particular. He's also got an early play bounce on play, the Ruka level 3, which could be useful if he doesn't succeed in breaking through the 2-1s at level 1. It's a good backup plan to just help win the board back and try and regain some like damage that you might have lost from direct attacks earlier in the game.
Exactly, and the list runs quite a lot of heals as well, which is going to be very important when we reach that late game, just to try and keep him as close to 3-0 as possible when the inevitable Shiki turn comes out.
For sure. It's a shame that Donald doesn't have any on reverse combos for Chris to dodge, but the heal loop package is still super solid.
And I think we're getting just about ready to start the game as well. Both players just doing their initial mulligan. Looks like Chris is going first. Quite an aggressive early mulligan from Donald there, just getting a bunch of cards that he doesn't need immediately out of his hand. The 1/1 not really needed at level 1. You can kind of safely discard it until you're needing it at 2 or 3.
It's not a core part of the engine. Like it's a nice additional thing to have, but he's got so many other combo pieces that he's got to gather together. It's not worth holding on to in the mulligan for sure.
Exactly. It provides a lot of usefulness to Shiki, but like you said, not really needed in that early game. Sticking a nice little bit of early damage. I think that's quite a useful thing to get against Summer Pocket, is if you can rush them to level 1 before they have the time to set up an ample amount of Shirahas, it can disrupt their game plan a little bit.
Early damage is super important in this matchup. I know when Summer Pockets was at the height of its reign, circa like 2017, 2018, I would be trying to guy climax them at level 0 just to give them no time to gather their level 1 combo together. The faster you can force it out, so that maybe they only get 1 lane instead of 2, maybe they don't get any lanes at all, it massively swings the game into your favor.
Exactly, and comparing level 1 combos to each other, Rent a Girlfriend doesn't have like massive power on the offense to be able to deal with those Shirahas if like 2 or 3 other lanes are covered. So being able to just sort of deny having that many Shirahas to deal with early is going to give Chris a lot more freedom just to plus off his combos before they inevitably drop.
Yeah. Chris is relying on his tech cards in this matchup for sure. He does have 2 level 1 early play bombs, which could help a lot, but they will still leave open slots behind, so Donald could still generate some damage lead off of that. So he's really aiming for the one of level 2 attacker to gain that advantage.
True, though I think taking out one of the Shirahas, even leaving the empty lane afterwards, is still very good value for Chris.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
We see him grabbing one of his level 1 combo, and he's just quickly explaining what it does to Donald. For those who don't know, the climax combo itself is a discard 1 card, top 4, grab any 2 Kanokari characters and add them to hand. And the card itself gains an extra 1,000 power when it's accompanied by 2 or more other Kanokari characters. So it's good hand fixing when you've got like a nice amount of cards in hand to sort of freely discard. The only downside to it, I've used combos similar to this before, and it can get a little tricky when you've got a lot of valuable cards in hand and you need to still drop one of them.
Yeah, it's very comparable to Sal's Yuki combo. You're a lot less selective in what you grab off it. But as I was saying earlier, the average card quality in this list is so high that two cards are better than any 1 card. There are very few cards that you would hate to see from your top 4.
For sure. Another kind of risk that you can present when running that kind of combo is it does restrict your ability to run events in the list too much. We saw that Chris's list is running 3 events, 2 of the early play event and 1 of the Fumio event, but I feel like that's quite a nice amount of a number of events to run in the deck without really risking the top 4 whiffing too heavily.
Yeah, he doesn't mind cutting out the early play event too much because he is including a bond to it as well. Only one off because it's not like core to the game plan, but it's a neat thing that you can do if the matchup favors it.
Definitely, the level 3 combo itself is quite like an interesting package as a whole. You've got the 2-0 event which can early play it, but you've also got another level 3 combo which combos with the same climax that the finisher does to swap into it, which gives you quite a lot of freedom to set it up. Really, it doesn't seem like it's too difficult to really pull off a triple combo in that deck.
For sure. We are seeing Donald is already at level 1, so we'll see if he decides to hold off for a turn or if he tries to force the combo out.
I can't quite tell how many cards he's got in hand at the moment, but being pushed to level 1 that quickly is probably not in his favor at the current state, just because of how costly setting up Shuraha can be.
He does have red for that 1-0 event, so he's got an option to hit a combo piece like that. My read from this is that maybe he doesn't have wind, so he's scared of milling too much because he's going to try and draw drop into it. Or maybe even just any other combo piece.
True. As the Shiroha combo does have to change from hand. You don't want to end up overextending your top fours and milling the pieces that you need.
3,000 power and just 1k.
Interesting that Donald's asking for powers.
Donald unfortunately does not gain the extra power on his clean cut, but 2k body is still big enough to beat over that Mami in the side lane.
Clean cut, we should clarify it's when it reverses something, you choose another one of your characters, rest it, and move it to back row. So it will give him an extra little bit of card advantage for going into next turn. Give him the opportunity to hang on to his 1-0 if he's not comboing this turn. Never mind. It will give him the opportunity to take away a lane and save a card for later because he is down to 2 cards in hand now.
Quite a interesting position Donald's in at the moment. He's got the Shiraha out, and he is in the position to clean cut one of his lanes to the back row if needed. But 3 cards in hand is not too much of a comfortable amount to be on if Chris can do something about this Shiraha.
Yeah,
Curious to see which target he decides to clean cut to the back row here.
I think from
yeah, the attack order would definitely suggest this.
Oh, double climax trigger is rough. It's interesting that he grabbed a copy of the 2-1 off the first choice. I wonder if he has a second wind in hand, or if he's just grabbing it for when he hits level 2 to play down.
Yeah, it's an interesting process. So I don't know if Donald's expecting the Shiraha to die next turn, because I would have imagined if he did think it was going to die next turn, he would clean cut it to the back row rather than his level 0.
I think when you're hit to level 1 this early, you're counting on a lot. I mean, this game is going very quickly, so maybe he's just hoping Chris hasn't gathered any of his answers to Shiraha yet, and he gets a turn out of it at least.
Hopefully, though Chris does have at least like 3 solid answers to Shiraha in his deck here.
And multiple ways to get them, even if he doesn't have them immediately.
So on the clean cut swing, did Chris only eat 1 damage? Yeah, that should have been a swing for 2, right? Yeah.
We're just having a slight misplay clarification there. The clean cut attack that Chris took should have been for 2 damage rather than 1.
It's a problem that would happen at a real life event, let alone a webcam tournament. So
yeah, webcam tournaments can often lend themselves to just kind of glossing over little bits like that every so often, especially on the caster side where we're having to talk over everything as well.
Hey, it's not our job to catch mistakes that happen. That's up to the players and the judges.
Very true. Chris whiffing a brainstorm there. I believe I saw one of the 1/1 anti-change slayers go in, but I might have been mistaken that slightly. A lot of the Ruka cards do unfortunately look quite similar.
He's just going for triple level 1 combo, just going for raw card advantage, which is a completely valid route against Shizu. Especially with an uninteractive combo like this, you can just kind of slam jam, and just the main advantage that Shiraha has is forcing you to crash. But if you're generating enough cards in response to that anyway, it's not a huge penalty.
Exactly. It does look like, however, that Chris doesn't have that many cards in hand, so even especially after a very painful top 4 like that hitting. This is this goes back to the problem I was saying with this combo earlier with the events, but you also get the same effect when you reveal too many climaxes on it, where you can just end up with not a lot of profiting off it if it gets quite painful like that.
Yeah, he revealing 3 here and he breaks even on it, which is unfortunate. The discard cost really diminishing the value from it.
He is getting kind of lucky with these with all this damage sticking, which, considering how many climaxes Donald went through last turn, I'm not entirely surprised.
Yeah, it is gonna be a bit rough for him if he hits Donald up too quickly, and then he loses the chance to anti-change the Shira. He has to beat over it with an early play instead, which there's obviously a lot more risk involved with that. Donald running 2-2K counters.
Very true. But on the flip side, you don't. Chris doesn't really have to worry about Donald playing his own early plays, given that this is an open deck tournament, so both players do have full knowledge of what the other player is running.
I'll just add these two.
That backup is how big?
2k.
2K.
Or 1, 2. Being pants. No pants.
Or cancel.
Chris triggering a pants trigger there, but declining to take the climax with only what looks like maybe 1 or 2 cards left in deck. Don't really blame him there. He wants to get as much compression as he can going into the following decks. Just that's all you can really do against Shiki, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Chris will actually be quite glad that he milled those 3 climaxes instead of triggering this turn, getting them into refresh. This game looks like it's going to be stalling out around level 2, so having climaxes going into second deck is really important.
True, even though he only managed to profit 1 card, well, I say profit, he went even on that combo. He is still what looks like 6 cards in hand, which is a very healthy amount of hand to have, especially when 5 of those cards were chosen by him out of what was in the top 12.
Yeah, he has relatively little to complain about. Donald did blind stock a choice of Shira last turn.
That is not what you want to see. Also explains why Donald ate so much damage that turn.
Although, despite that, both players here are even in damage going into Donald's turn. So there's it's quite a lot in the balance. I think these Donald's turn and Chris's turn following this will be pivotal for the way that the rest of the game plays out.
Yeah, Donald being very sensible here as well, grabbing the anti-change backup, ready for what is probably going to be a turn that hits Chris to level 2, just so he's got that answer for any early plays that Chris decides to play, which he does have. He has 4 early plays in his deck that could be a little bit of a problem for Donald to deal with.
Yeah, the early play heal to stocks aren't quite as threatening to Shira because they're only 10,000 power base. But the on-play bounce in particular, well, I mean, it gets its value on play, so anti-changing it isn't huge, but at least you can mitigate the damage swing that having a 2-soul body can bring.
Very true. And one of the benefits to potentially anti-changing that card as well is the second effect that it has. On top of being an on-play bounce, it has an accelerate effect, which pay 1, discard a Kanokari character, and minus 2 souls an opponent's character, which against Shiki is quite a nice thing to have. It's lowering the amount of burn instances coming out, which is quite a useful thing to deal with.
Yeah, it is quite important. I wonder if Chris will hang on to it into level 3 for that reason, instead of playing it aggressively to deal with a Shira.
Both options do have their merits, but if he decides to answer a Shiroha with it, he is going to need to make sure he doesn't accidentally walk into that anti-change counter.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Shira, we have 2 and a second wind in play. This is a big turn for Donald fans out there.
Unfortunately, those Rukas are not that big on the defense, so even with a backup, Chris isn't going to be able to save them from being reversed by these Shirohas.
it would be a tall order to get them big enough to defend from a Shiraha on the offensive for sure. In the age-old debate, search or salvage, Donald will be glad that Shiraha is salvaging instead of searching this time.
Especially
Although,
when you've got a nice target like Shiki to grab off that.
yeah, he would be upset about refreshing this turn, but he is going to have his choice of salvaging whatever's in his clock because his refresh is going to level him up.
True. I can't quite tell at the moment just to Donald's hand, well, his waiting room and stuff covering it, but it doesn't look like he has a Shiki and clock to salvage, unfortunately. Chris just
checking
quickly,
how many counters out.
yeah, with that open knowledge, he knows that the only counter that Donald has in hand at the moment is the anti-change backup, which is only a one of.
Yeah, it's still enough to scare him away from trying to beat over the Shirahas with a single early play. But if he's got two, he can threaten two lanes and guarantee reversing one. Not amazing salvage options for Donald here.
Yeah, though with his current board state, there's not really too much other than like maybe Shiki or the back or the 1/1 back row that would be a good target to salvage here.
7 going back in. Anything else? You want
Yeah, if I was Donald, I would be looking to set up for late game, and I would be kind of upset that I have no good salvage options for the late game. Although I guess he'll be just glad for the raw card advantage, only being at 4 cards in hand at the end of this turn.
Very true, and yeah, his best salvage option here to me would probably be a brainstorm, just so he could aggressively try and get more of those targets. He is sitting on 6 stock at the moment, and probably isn't looking at having enough to do Shiki, like to do a triple Shiki in the next turn, but an extra, spending an extra stock to throw out a second brainstorm might not be the worst idea in the world, just to craft that hand a little bit better.
I don't think he'll want to Shiki until Chris is at least level 3, because it's not a top end with a ton of reach. And I think it's why I would favor Enter Girlfriend in this matchup, not because of the tech options, but because it heals down so much that even like a double Shiki, it's essentially vanilla swings that are more likely to stick. And it's not incredible at swinging you all the way from like 2-6 to dead.
True, even 3-0 can be a little bit of a tricky point. I think that's the magic number Chris is going to want to make sure he stays at for when the Shiki turn comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Shiki is just one of those combos that just gets exponentially better the more closer to that, the more closer to level 4 the opponent is.
Chris hitting 3 off that salvage brainstorm. So
That's a hard one to watch.
it's better than hitting 3 off the climax combo, I suppose. But
True.
it is just more raw card advantage because there weren't a lot of options in that waiting room.
Quite big powers on those Shirahas there.
Yeah.
I think Chris is going to need to carefully consider here if he does decide to double early play is the early plays don't get that big, and if he tries to kill off one of the Shirahas with it, Donald could very easily just play a backup, get bigger in the lane, and anti-change the other lane, and that would put Chris in a very bad position.
Yeah, that would be a huge swing.
2 more?
This is the level 2 attacker we were talking about earlier. Going down a little bit late, but better late than never.
Yeah, still very glad to see this card being played out against this. I'm honestly, given the amount, I'm more thinking about this from how I was thinking of approaching this tournament. I was quite expecting a lot of summer pockets and other standby heavy decks. I'm very surprised that this card wasn't being run at more than one of.
I think it can get quite cloggy, and it only targets very specific matchups. It is really strong to be a 0 stock option that forces out a counter. But oftentimes that's all it will do is force out a counter and lose the lane anyway. It
True.
can't
So this
without
this
a thing.
list does have quite a lot of discard outlets, especially with the level 1 combo requiring to discard as part of it anyway. I feel like even running it as a 2 of in the deck, if you're having a matchup where it is just not going to get to do its effects, at worst, it's just discard fodder for a combo that feels a lot better to do than having to discard a card that you actually wanted to keep.
That's true, but when you look through Chris's list, there are already so many cards in here that he's trying to squeeze in. Sometimes a 2-off tech option just doesn't make the cut.
Yeah, that is fair. Yeah. And as it stands at the moment, Chris is going to be winning in 2 lanes, but he does know that Donald still has that counter in hand, so he's going to have to force that out.
Donald using his on reverse, choosing not to use his on reverse Rize, which is mill 3 and pick 1. So we can read that he thinks the cards in his hand are good and he wants to hang on to them, or that his compression is quite good and he's scared of milling climaxes that he could be cancelling with instead.
I do appreciate the fact that Chris decided to swing into the Rize first. That's always something I like to do myself, just to force that early dilemma. It's a lot easier to decide on a Ricky, not on a Ricky, on a Rize when it's being killed last as opposed to first.
Yeah, forcing your opponent to make decisions is a good way to play the game. And yeah, if he kills it last, you nearly always take them mill 3 because there's no damage that can't be undone during your main phase. But at the start of the attack step, it's a lot scarier.
And we did see the backup being forced out here, and Donald opting not to use the anti-change to deal with the early play that's in Chris's back row there. Quite good positioning on Chris's part there, as anti-changing the level 3 in the back row when you're only running 1-off feels a little bit more punishing to use than if you were to deny a swing with it.
It would be a huge cost for Donald to take right now. Pay 2 and sack. The sack wouldn't matter so much, but paying 3 stock to tie a lane and give Chris a stock, that's a little bit too much for him to stomach right now, I suppose.
Yeah, I think if I was Donald in that situation, I think regardless of how Chris had played that early play, I would have opted not to do it.
I'm interested in Donald counting his stock here, because he could be thinking about clocking himself up to level 3 and playing a finishing turn, which I think would be a bad idea, considering Chris is on 2-3.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. If I was in Donald's shoes here, my play would be get Chris to level 3, survive the next turn, and then try and finish Rashiki. Preemptively playing the level assist ready. Not a bad shout considering it does give 1,000 extra power to Shiraha on its own.
It will make the Shira that much harder to deal with, for sure. Yeah, I don't have a huge problem with him playing it down a little bit earlier. It gives out the soul as well, right? Just to help him push that bit more damage.
It only gives the soul to Shiki.
I see.
Yeah, other than that effect, it is just a level assist and tap self to give out 500 power.
Donald being very careful with his stock management here. So he probably does have Shikis in hand ready to go.
He is going to need to get those. He might be trying to make sure he can keep that magic number of 7 just to be able to do a triple Shiki. I believe if he's only going for a double, I think he only needs. I want to say 4 stock, depending on
Yes.
what he fields in the third lane.
Interesting. Okay. I thought Donald was gonna swing with both of his brainstorms here, but it looks like he's gonna either play over or sacrifice his pay to rest this search. Yeah. Which is an interesting card to include. It feels kind of antiquated by now. I remember running that card in at my TLR Animals deck around 2016. So it's interesting to see that card come back in 2021.
It's not very it's not very often that you see just a simple pay to rest search on with a frontal 500 power assist on it. Like you said, it feels very very dated nowadays, especially in a set like Summer Pockets, which has quite a lot of good level 0 options.
Yeah. I think looking through Donald's list, you can really see his desire to gather the level 1 combo incredibly consistently with 3 of this pay to rest search, 4 drop searches, and the top 4 event.
It is some very aggressive specific card grabbing, which I guess you can get away with a little bit considering how stock efficient Shiki is overall.
Yeah. We saw Donald trigger wind and bounce the early play, which I'm sure he'll be pretty excited about. Rewards him not paying to anti-change it last turn.
True, though that does give another heal to stock in Chris's hand there.
Very true. The condition on that early play is only 4 more other characters, so it'll be very easy for Chris to match it this time.
Yeah, if the early play condition had been the more conventional 2 or less climaxes in bin, that might have been a little bit more easy to bounce to hand. But I'm curious if that heal ends up becoming very relevant in the late game. He is running quite a lot of that card to begin with, so it isn't impossible for him to have more copies. But more heal is always very useful in this matchup.
Yeah, he has 3 to heal down here, which I think he'll actually be glad that he got hit up to 3-3 instead of being stuck at 3-0, because it will give him some value out of those cards. I know when I run very heal heavy lineups, my opponents are always very good at hitting me up to exactly 3-0 and then killing me from there, so I don't get a chance to heal down.
Yeah, 3-3 is a very nice position for him to be in. He has got one of the early play event in memory. For those of you who don't know what the effect is, the condition to play it is you need a Kanokari character on field, and it goes to memory. And then at the start of your following main phase, you send it to the waiting room, and you choose one of the level 3 finisher combo in your hand, and you place it on the stage and give it 1,000 power. So you basically get to cheat out the character for free while also getting the on-play heal that it has.
It's very comparable to the Bunny Girl event that plays out the finisher, but I think a little bit stronger because you do get the heal out of it, and it's 0 stock instead of 1.
Yeah, the 0 stock is very, very important for this. Like, the combo itself is not actually that stock intensive. You only need to pay 1 and drop a card on attack. So even quite low on stock, if you've been playing the events, you don't need that much to get a triple combo going.
Yeah, and I think that's why Chris afforded himself 4 early plays in this list, because he can very consistently play even 2 of them and still have plenty of stock going into level 3, even in a game that's going as quickly as this one is. And
the other level 3 that we've seen him play is it's the other part of the package to do with this combo that I was on about. It has on play top 3 for any card, quite a nice starting effect to have. And when he plays the gate, you sack itself to swap it into the other level 3. So you get a little bit of a top some like top deck gathering to dig for that climax, and you also just get an extra heal out of it because you get to swap back into the level 3.
I think the word of the day for this matchup is consistency, because this level 3 combo is incredibly consistent. The changes are essentially extra copies, and the event is also essentially extra copies of the level 3.
Yeah, if you wanted to look at it that way, you could say that Chris is basically running 8 copies of his level 3 combo, which, when you say it like that, when you also have 8 copies of your level 3 combo, technically all 8 copies are healing on play.
Mm-hmm.
And two of
and
them
then-
are top 3ing as well. It is incredibly consistent.
And even a 9th if you count the drop bomb to the event. So it's a lot.
Yeah, none of those pieces costing more stock than the actual combo would, and in some cases actually costing less, which is incredible.
This is actually quite an unfortunate turn for Chris, triggering gate on this attack and only having 2 cards left in deck, so the gate currently in play is going to be out of his deck for refresh. He is going to get to combo to pay that gate out of his stock, which is quite fortunate. But
yeah, the attack order being quite useful there, just to have that option to pay out if he ends up triggering. I don't even know if he has another climax left in deck at this point, but if he does trigger that extra climax, he could very easily pay out with the 3rd. And he has hit Donald to level 3 here, so we probably expecting some Shikis to pop out next turn.
I would be surprised if they didn't show up this turn, for sure. That is the 2nd gate.
Very, very much rewarded for his attack order here.
It's helping to mitigate the cost of the combo and allowing him to kill Donald over 2 turns. So I think he will actually be quite glad of that.
To be honest, I think this is probably the best case scenario in the attack order, because not only does he get to pay these climaxes out, but because he's triggering the gates, he's salvaging cards, which is just more compression going into this next deck.
Exactly. Let's him set up the perfect hand for next turn, when he will be hoping to kill Donald if he doesn't do so here.
It is a little bit sad that Chris isn't going to have this last climax going back into deck, but it's
a necessary evil. I think.
It is a necessary evil, and with 7 climaxes going back in, that's a pretty. I feel like that's a healthy amount to have. He is, however, going to be starting Donald's turn on 3-2, which is not as good as he probably would have hoped to have been. Obviously, you want to be as close to 3-0 as possible going up against Shiki, but
yeah, and this deck is capable of a lot better as well. So I think Chris will be disappointed.
yeah, from Chris's perspective here, I think he's just hoping that Donald doesn't have triple Shiki assembled here.
Yeah, it's interesting because he had the early play bounce to hand, so he could have healed 1 more damage down. I think he might have chosen not to just for the sake of compression and cards in hand. I mean, I don't think he was counting on triggering 2 gates there, maybe counting on 1, but
it is a bit of a shame that we don't see Chris having the early play accelerate out on the field to deal with the Shiki going into this turn, but sometimes it just doesn't fall that way, especially when the card is only a 1-of in the deck.
Yeah, there aren't quite as many tools to get that on board as there are the level 3 combo, so marginally less consistent.
Only marginally.
Yeah, so this turn, it's essentially going to be asking Donald, do you have Shikis in hand? He's going to be clocking himself up to 3-6 to try and pull the combo together.
This is very much going to be a do or die turn for Donald here. We see him on 3-6, and I don't know if there's Shiki's heal on play.
They do not.
They do not. So if Donald doesn't finish Chris here, he is almost definitely dead.
The Shikis do top X, so they are also remarkably consistent. And we did just see Donald discard a choice, so we can have the read that he has a choice in hand.
I think at this point he is just digging for as many Shikis as he possibly can. Yeah,
But being careful not to accidentally
Yep.
refresh himself and lose the game. I'm glad he thought that.
Doesn't need to dig for all 5 of the cards. So as soon as he gets those cards he needs, as long as he has those 4 attacks, he's safe to. As long as he has those 4 cards left in deck, he is safe to do these attacks.
Yeah, that would have been a terrible way for the stream game to end with a player accidentally killing themselves. There was a Shiki in stock, so he might not actually be able to get 3. He might have to put up with only 2.
Ooh, very, very brave of Donald to just very easily whip 5 cards off the top of the deck. I know he counted it beforehand, but in the moment, it's very easy to forget that on the spot.
This is definitely a position where you want to double, triple check, pull out your fingers and do some counting on there. So it's a classic Fireback quote. You want to do your counting on your fingers on the world stage because you'll be counting the winner's check on your fingers on the way home.
I'm very curious if Donald managed to pick up that third Shiki or not. I guess we'll find out in a sec. Ooh,
Oh,
as an aggressive draw drop.
what could he possibly be digging towards? The Musashi one off?
Either the Musashi one of or third Shiki would be my guess. Because with nothing else at level 3 here, he can't be digging for anything else that has extra soul. Or maybe he was looking for another one of those. That is a possibility.
The additional soul is gonna make this turn that much more devastating for Chris.
Let me just double check the wording on Shiki. Okay, yeah, Shiki requires to have 3 or less soul on attack to do the combo, and the 1/1 back row does give the soul to 2 separate Shikis each. So a second one at this point, I don't really feel like is necessary, unless he just doesn't have the combo in hand. But I highly doubt that, considering as we saw, he dropped a choice earlier.
Why is he giving the power to the 1-0? That's like the least important lane.
I mean, I guess he just wants to make it a bit bigger. Shiki doesn't need to reverse, so there is that.
Okay, so he is being very careful to only leave Shiki on 3 soul.
Yeah.
4 cards left in deck. Okay. Oof.
That would have also been a very, very sad way to see this go if he had accidentally given both Shikis both amounts of souls. It can be quite easy to forget that the soul that you get off the choice climax does in fact count towards Shiki's soul requirement for the combo.
Yeah, it checks the combo procs on attack, so it's however much soul you have there. Does that include direct attack soul, do you know?
I believe it does. I'm not 100% sure on that though, but I believe it does.
Yeah, it's a shame for Chris that his bouncing to hand is only when front attacked, so he can't manipulate Donald's soul like that.
I'm sorry it has to be this way.
That's fine. 1, 2, 3.
3, 2, 1, please.
3, 2, 1.
Okay.
Oh.
Chris using the mill counter to win on that attack.
I did not notice the fact that Chris's list had 2 different level 2 counters. That is my bad.
There was no way for Donald to play around that. He could have sided in that lane, but he wouldn't have had enough to kill anyway, so that's just an unfortunate turn of events.
Yeah, I feel like with being aware of the mill counter existing, maybe I wouldn't have gone so deep on the Shiki top X's.
Yeah, there was counterplay.
He assembled those 2 quite quickly, and after that it was a lot of heavy digging through the deck. Yeah.
And considering it's an open decklist event as well, it's just unfortunate, really.
Yeah, they're saying that open deck list. I have the deck open right in front of me, and I glossed over it completely.
Should we go talk to the players?
Yeah, I think we're good to do an interview now.
I brainstormed and hit the three pans.
Yeah.
After hitting the 4, like the 3 climaxes off the top 4 off of the combo, the turn before, I was like, oh no.
Hello, you two.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that was a way to end that game. I was just saying on the commentary that I had the deck list open right in front of me, and I completely glossed over the fact that you were running 2 different level 2 counters, and one of them was a mill counter.
Yeah, it's the one time it's actually mattered.
It is always it does always feel quite nice when you close a game like that, but it's as Donald, from your perspective, I'm sure that must feel the exact opposite.
I was like, I was going all in. Like, you literally saw me there, top five, and then the draw drop or the event. It was one or the other. I went with the draw drop just to draw the 3-2 and then play and then triple combo off. And then yeah, that would have been like my last turn. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. If I didn't finish him out, I was like, fine, fair enough. But like, god damn, I completely forgot about um um actually, then again, I didn't know that he had it in hand, so I just went as if I I just went through with regardless,
Yeah.
and hoping to swing the 2 and then close off with the 3-2s there in the end. But yeah, didn't even get to do that.
This might come across as a bit of a mean-spirited question in light of what just happened, but we were curious why you weren't running any early play heals in this list.
So I wasn't playing any of the early play heals for the fact that I generally like prioritize to just hold on to the 2-1 combo for like pretty much from 2 to 3, and I generally try to save my stock game, my stock for to play out triple of the 3-2s rather than having only being able to pull off just 2 or 1 per se. And yeah, like I've had times where I did try out a healer instead, but I think it's just the fact that I I feel like in this particular situation, a healer would have mattered, but I would have known that I would have been milled out as a result to be refreshed into game because I knowingly clocked so that I can draw my third copy.
Yeah, hindsight is 2020, as they say.
Yeah, because the idea, yeah, because if I clocked and draw the third copy, then I wouldn't have had to like mill out my entire deck because my hand was the 3-2 choice and the 1-1 in hand with 7 stock in play. So like I think that I drew like the level of the 500 front character. I drew this for turn, and then you know I might as well try to get the level 3 at that point because I knew I refreshed 1 back in. But yeah, as overall for healers, I tend to not rely on them as much due to the fact that they do come up at some times, but I feel like I prioritize to play this more over to try and set up so that I can early play a healer in cases. Yeah.
That's fair. Shira is still very solid enough that I guess you can just sit on them for quite a while until you need the cheekies out, which you did pretty well that game, though Shira has lasted a long time.
Yeah, so because I didn't expect the choices during when I triggered, but then it just helped that I already set it up that in case should I need to like salvage, I already had another wind in hand, so I already was prepared to do the 2-1 combo, which I did do again, and then for some reason I did have another wind, but like I think I was too far into level 2 to warrant to have a third wind combo play for the next following turn. That's why I think at one point you see in the game I ditched a wind when I played the wind afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we were surprised that it lived so long, because we were looking through Chris's list and there were like 4 different answers to Shira in there.
Yeah, there's at least 3. I had 2 of them in hand because I had the early play Slayer and the one that I actually used to kill off one of the Shikis. But the issue I had was that to kill one off with the backup in hand, like to avoid the backup, really, I had to also not warrant an anti change at all because he was going to hit 2 off the attack.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I did enjoy seeing the 1-0 Ruka tech in that deck. I think that was especially for this tournament at the moment with some of the decks running right. I think that was a really good addition.
Yeah, I would start playing around with two different ratios of the 1/1 green Ruka and the 1/0. Originally I was at one point playing one copy of the 1/1 and two copies of the 1/0. But I felt like the 1/1 has more play potential just because the fact it can get over early plays as well.
Yeah, the 1/1 just targets more things, so it's,
Yeah.
it's better in overall, especially this tournament's going to be at least 6 rounds of Swiss.
Yeah, definitely. But the only reason I could see myself running two copies of the 1/0 really was to try and try and confirm getting the blue and clock a lot more for the level 1 game, and also to have it for the early play level 3 one off that I'm playing.
Yeah, one thing we were saying as well, and this is I don't know about you, but this is my first time seeing Kanokari be used. That level 3 combo with the whole package surrounding it with the other 3-2 and the 2-0 event, that combo is ridiculously consistent.
Yeah, you're always getting one or two out. It's often if you're not just eating damage, then you can have two out at level 2 and just get 2 or 3 turns of the gate combo.
Well, I think we're going to start getting ready for the next game in a moment. So thank you both of you for being on stream.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for having me.
congratulations, Chris, and commiserations, Donald.
That's fine. Thanks.
Good luck to both of you in the rest of the tournament.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we will go for a short break, and then we will be back with Ben versus John. So stay tuned.